everybody, welcome back. So it looks like we're actually going to get a new release of Dawn of the Dead finally on Blu-ray. Though I'm still trying to figure out all the details and what it means going forward. So if you hadn't heard, Second Sight, which is a UK distributor, originally teased this on their social media, both on Facebook and on Twitter. And as you can tell with the sort of Dawn of the Dead logo, and it's happening. A lot of speculation followed, and then they actually did officially announce that they are releasing both Dawn of the Dead and Martin. So on their Facebook page that they had posted last week from when I'm recording this, we're incredibly excited to officially announce our acquisition of George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead and Martin for UK Blu-ray and VOD, following a licensing deal with New Amsterdam Entertainment, that is Richard Rubinstein's company. We will be releasing later this year and have a lot planned. More details to follow in coming weeks. Keep watching this space. So there's obviously a lot of stuff kind of going on here. A lot of this is going to be speculation only because there hasn't been too much announced, but there have been sort of little bits here and there. Second Sight is a UK company. Now they've put out releases in the past. They're a little bit of a smaller distributor, but they put out some really good titles even just recently. Last year, for example, they put out a deluxe edition of Extra, which is really good, and When a Stranger Calls, which is really good. In fact, I just watched that copy a couple nights ago. They put out really good editions, but they haven't really had anything huge, anything on this level. It looks like a French company is doing transfers for it. Now, again, this is not official because I don't know who this person is. I'm not gonna post their name or anything, so take this with a grain of salt, but it may be true. Someone who claims that they're working on this release, and they specifically are working on the Argento cut. So as far as I can tell, that supposedly the US theatrical cut is getting a brand new scan from the original negative, and then the extended cut of Dawn as well as the Argento cut are getting new scans from their IPs, which makes sense. Obviously, they wouldn't be negative scans from those two cuts. No news on Martin. Now, Martin is interesting because Martin, of course, was shot on 16mm, then blown up to 35 for release, and I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe all previous video releases were taken from 35mm blow-ups, not the original 16mm negative, which I admit I do not know whether or not that 16mm negative even exists anymore. I don't know if it's in good condition and hopefully it'll be used for transfers, or if it's lost or in really bad condition, in which case they have to use the 35mm blow up for transfers of Martin. I do not know. I'm just sort of speculating on this until we know more. So what does this mean? Obviously, the good news is the fact that Richard Rubinstein is now allowing companies to, he is licensing Dawn and Martin out for release. Now, the fact that this is coming out in both France and the UK. So this is a French company who's doing the transfers, it looks like. And Second Sight is releasing the film on Blu-ray in the UK. If I had to guess, I'd assume Second Sight and this French company probably did a combined deal with Rubinstein, because he is asking for a lot of money to release this, with the French company handling the transfers and the color correction, and then Second Sight handling probably the creation of some of the extras and stuff. Again, I don't know that for a fact. That's just what it kind of seems like, because they're working together on this, as far as I can tell. What does this mean for the US? I don't know exactly. There's no US distributor named as of now. If I had to guess, the Second Sight release probably will be region locked. I'm just guessing on that. I don't know for sure. Now, they have released stuff region free in the past. For example, those releases of Extra and When a Stranger Calls are region free. But I'm guessing Rubinstein probably cut a deal, different deals for different regions. Second Sight, I assume, only has UK rights. Someone else would be handling the US rights. Now, who would be handling the US rights? Arrow is obviously not going to be releasing Dawn or Martin. I can't believe they would only have US rights without UK rights, because Arrow, although they obviously release stuff in the US, are strictly a UK company. And my estimate was that if they couldn't do UK US rights, or at the very least UK only rights, it doesn't really make much sense for them to only do US rights. So who would be releasing it in the US? Obviously, Scream Factory would be probably the most obvious, mainly because Scream Factory has been trying to get Dawn of the Dead for many, many years now. Literally for the last several years, they've been trying over and over and over again. And in fact, there was at one point, I believe, they actually almost had the rights to it where they had agreed to something and were drawing up contracts. And then at the last minute, I believe Rubenstein just decided not to do it. So he just pulled out. So it's in a weird spot right now. If anyone's putting it out, again, I would assume it would be Scream Factory. I know some people have wondered about Criterion, because Criterion did put out that amazing set of Night of the Living Dead last year. My opinion is I don't see Criterion putting out Dawn of the Dead. One, I don't think they would put up the money for it. And two, it doesn't really fit within the stuff they release. However, if it's not a package deal, I mean, if Dawn and Martin are not a package deal, although I kind of assume that they probably are, but if they're not, I could see Criterion putting out just Martin. Martin actually would fit in more with the Criterion label. I mean, that could be a possibility, and actually would be actually really cool, especially if they get a hold of, again, the 16mm negative if it exists. But my guess is that Dawn and Martin are probably a package deal. Now, could there be a sort of a long shot of somebody who would come in, say, Synapse, for example, could come in? Synapse, when they were Elite Entertainment back in the Laserdisc days, were the ones who originally put out a special edition of Dawn of the Dead. And Synapse has been fairly quiet lately. There have been little bits and pieces of information about some upcoming releases like Hot Dog the Movie and stuff, and Deadly Spawn. Could they have been quiet until this deal was done and then they'll come out and announce something? Maybe. I don't think so, but again, not outside of the realm of possibility. Blue Underground could also be a possibility, just because they've, William Lustig was a part, did a lot of the stuff with Anchor Bay back in the day, including getting a lot of the George Romero films put out on DVD back then. And I believe he was instrumental in doing he was part of the DVD box set back then, I believe. And obviously with Blue Underground's recent releases of Zombie and Maniac, and those are two stellar releases, by the way. That would be fantastic if they could get a hold, both films or either. Do I see it happening? No, I don't think so, because again, Blue Underground, I don't see them putting up the kind of money that would be needed. Could a company like Severin put it out? Maybe. Severin and Second Sight do have a relationship and everything. For example, they both put out releases of The Changeling and stuff, and they were, I think there is some back and forth between those two companies. Again, just from a financial standpoint, I just don't see some of these smaller companies really handling it. I think in my last video on Dawn of the Dead, I mentioned Welgo USA is a possibility, because they did put out that really great Phantasm box set and stuff, and there was rumored that they may have actually been trying to go after Dawn of the Dead. Maybe? That is a possibility, as sort of a wild card. Again, my gut sort of tells me that Scream Factory, at the very least, has Dawn of the Dead. Again, they've been fighting for it for years. I assume that if a deal was made, they probably found a way to have it done, because again, we are entering, again, depending on who you ask, we are entering the 40th anniversary of it. Now, if that is the case, when will we get an announcement? I don't know. I assume sooner than later, now that Second Sight has sort of announced theirs. But again, you're talking about two different deals. The U.S. one would be a lot more complicated. The U.S. market is the biggest market in the world, so that one is going to be a lot more complicated than a UK market. So it's going to be interesting what transpires. But the fact that we are now getting a brand new Blu-ray release, not a re-release, for example, like some of the other, the Japanese, the German or Austrian release that came out, kind of thing, which were basically just re-releases. And again, those were in territories where someone else kind of owns the rights. distribution rights. That's why they were able to get released there, but they couldn't get access to obviously doing new transfers. Obviously, we're getting new transfers of Dawn and I believe Martin, and so the ball is rolling. So there is going to be a release, an official release in the UK of Dawn and Martin. And so now it's just a matter for those of us in the US, for example, or in Region A territories. Because again, my gut is telling me that the second site release is probably going to be region locked. So the question is who's going to release it in the US. Again, I'm assuming Scream Factory. I'm kind of keeping an eye out. I mean, from when this news broke to when I'm recording this video right now, I almost recorded obviously video immediately. So much had kind of come out, and luckily I waited because there were a little bit of details and stuff that sort of came out, especially about the transfers and stuff, which if the news that it is being done from the negative is a plus. That means the negative luckily is in good shape. And again, supposedly, if what I read is indeed true, Michael Gornick is overseeing the transfer, or these, putting in notes for the transfer. So it's all good news. It's just a matter of just kind of seeing where we go from here. It'll be interesting to see once the official announcement of what's actually going to be on this second side disc is going to be, and who in the US got those rights, kind of thing, or if they're being ironed out now. I don't know. I will definitely keep you posted because this is obviously one I've been following for a long time. So obviously a lot more stuff to talk about, but luckily there is some good news coming in the pipeline. So thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.